Hey guys, how you doing? Still me, still unknown. I'll probably keep going with that for, I don't know, the foreseeable future. Hey, why not? So my primary goal in this section of my town is I'm going to be building towards getting a forge to where I can start making iron plates as well as conveyor belts and intermediate logic so I can have pushers to push them into houses. Because you can unlock conveyor belts with basic logic. However, without pushers, they are of limited use. The primary thing I'm working on right now is intermediate logic, which takes quite a bit of research. I would try, and have tried in several versions of this, to automate intermediate research as far as making farms and foresters to cut down trees to try to produce things faster. However, that actually leads you into a trap where your economy just basically dies because it can't support itself to run those extra production buildings. Basically just off of stone. You don't have the income and you end up with 0 gold, and you take a very long time to progress towards your goal. So this is how I go through this part of it. Is you just stay manual harvesting of resources for as long as you can. I'm building a second paper mill to get pages into my school faster to try and improve the speed of research. But since I have to bridge across the river, I gotta build my little ramp and bridge and make things all nice and happy. The good thing about doing the ramps and blocks like this is you can use tab to switch between the two to build quickly a diagonal path like this. Tab switching should be added to. Okay, well, those didn't line up, so okay, I'm gonna kill half of them and rebuild them. Okay, so as I was saying, you can switch back and forth to build quickly using tabs, and that's one level too high. Okay, well, kill that, kill that, kill that. Oh, wait, one more. There we go. So you can build a bridge across the river like this using the ramps, tab switching back and forth. The ability to switch back and forth is talked about by the developer being added to other items and other scaffolding forms other than just the basic block and ramp. However, as of right now, you just have blocks and ramps. So I put my chutes going over and down so my workers can just throw logs on it and they roll straight into the secondary paper mill. I'll throw some footpaths down so they can work together nicely. Okay, well, I got extra pages going in. Let's see how we're doing on research. Give me a third worker up there to even out the production between the two paper mills, so they each have 3 workers apiece feeding them. Come on. Where are you going? Okay, there you are. Workers choose some weird paths sometimes. Okay, now they're working. Okay. Stone rolling into the houses, making money. I have to expand my labor force a little bit to build the buildings I need to, so I gotta build a couple more houses. That one paper only has a single worker in it, whereas the other has 5. So it's not producing as fast as it could. I gotta get more workers. What the? Water's. Oh, wait, it's paused. Oops. Yeah, water does weird stuff when it's paused. As soon as you unpause it, it flows out and acts normal. Eventually, I'll add a pasture and mill and other associated things. Actually, start making books rather than just pages. But for now, pages work because it's cheap and doesn't cost my economy stuff to run whenever I'm just pulling. That that log went the wrong way because that chute is slanted the other way downhill. Come on, chutes, figure yourself out. Okay, pick items up. Pick items up. Come on. Come on, items. And it doesn't want to. And get out of there. You guys move away. Come on. There you go. Alright, it doesn't want to. Okay, you know what? Fine. You don't want to pick items up? I'll just delete the whole section and rebuild it. Whenever you're hovering over any building in the world, you can press C to copy it. Okay, now you guys can put it on that. Why are you standing there? Okay, delete them and rebuild them. Okay, put them on there. And they're still just standing there. I think these workers are on strike. No, they're because I built the one level ramp right there. They can't hand it up because they're not at the same level. So fine, I'll build them a platform to stand on. Yay, one, but they're not. What are you guys doing? That makes no sense. It's got to be the terrain level messing with it. Okay, give me a second. I gotta rip all this out and level everything. Rip. Okay, here we go. Tools, there we go. Level the terrain. How you leveled the terrain under a tree, I don't know, but game logic. Here we go. Shoot, footpath. Drop in some workers and logs. There we go. Now we're happy. Come on, get in your little. There you go. Get in your little spot. Thank you. Stupid workers. Okay, let's see here. Got some belts in, but yeah, that's enough for now. If I need more, I'll expand it. That worker's not doing much of anything, so I'm gonna actually have to build my first farm to feed this grain mill because that one worker harvesting a single piece of wheat is not doing it for me. But farms require stone, so rather than building a new building, I'll just stick a barn right here and move stone over manually. So, but I need more logs to build stuff with, so suction materials up off of the chutes. Drop me a couple of houses. Upgrade. Oh, give me some more logs. Come on. 3 more. 2 more. There we go. Okay. Copy. Paste. And upgrade. There we go. Now we got workers. I'm totally going to have to put more workers down there harvesting stone because that's not nearly fast enough to be useful right now. Got to get my farm up and running to feed wheat into the grain mill so my belts can keep getting made. But yeah, gotta get water over to it. Give me a second. Kill these chutes real quick. Yay, terraforming. Basically digging a channel over to it where it has a small spot of water next to it and then filling the channel back in so I can still work with it. You can't dig directly next to houses, so you gotta go one spot away, but it's fine. And what I like to do personally is I'll make it to where it's 4 squares of water, then dig it down 2 levels, and then level the terrain back to where it's just the 4 spots of water again. What that does is that sets a smaller amount of water in a deeper hole, which lets me put these wooden arches over it and turn it back into land without seeing the water poke its way through and just visually look bad. It'll work exactly the same. It's just something I do out of OCD-ness because I don't like seeing the water come up through the terrain. Yay, and now we have wheat production. Relatively slow, but it doesn't help that I was putting it into the barn. Yay, grain mill. There we go. That's what I wanted. Just temporarily using a worker to transfer stuff out of the barn that I just put in there by accident. As the pasture runs, it generates fertilizer.
and fertilizer can be used to make farm squares, which is what I'm putting down here. And each farm plot increases the efficiency of the farm by 5%. So as you add more and more and more spots, the farm, if you completely fill up every possible spot with farm plots, it is about 500% efficiency, so it runs about 5 times faster than normal without adding extra workers. So in general, as long as you don't have other buildings in the area, it's best just to fill up as many farm spots as you can with however much fertilizer you have saved up at any given time. You do the same thing once you get foresters up and running and a forge to create the iron bars to do it, but you can plant trees next to foresters to do it and have the same effect, basically make it run faster. Okay, so now that's up and running. The downside of running a farm like this is every wheat it produces costs 1 gold. So if you have a large set of production like this that's actually producing a lot of wheat or a lot of wood, you have to have an economy that can support it, otherwise you're shooting yourself in the foot. In general, putting multiple farms is usually better than doing one and trying to max out its production with all farm tiles. But if you put more side by side, you'll tend to get more output overall, but it's more of a preference of how much land you want to use and how many farm tiles you want to invest. You find a good balance of the way you want to lay them out. I put them side by side to make the water easier, and I just messed up. Okay, what just happened is when water is not connected to one of the original rivers on the map, it's not considered infinite. So if you allow the water to spread out over too shallow of an area, it'll basically evaporate, which is what it just did to me. So I had to redig my channel back to the infinite water in the river. And now I've got to dig down, limit the amount of water in the pool, and then dig down 2 levels to make it nice looking. There, now we have our 4 square. Then take and dig it down 2 levels. And re-level the terrain to where it's back to being just a 4 square hole like that. But you have a smaller amount of water down inside of it rather than at the surface. Then put my wooden arches over it so I can start building farm tiles on it and basically hide it so I don't have to look at it anymore. You don't have to build arches over the water. You can just put the farm tiles down and leave the water open, but that's 4 squares that you otherwise couldn't use. It would basically reserve for the water, and you couldn't put farm tiles there, which lowers the overall efficiency. So, yeah. At this point, once you have an economy up and running, wooden arches are relatively cheap because you have a large amount of resources saved up. So you don't have to worry about spending a couple of wooden planks on making arches. So for now, I'm just throwing raw wheat into the market. Once I get my iron bars built and flowing into the houses, I'll start setting up an actual grain mill and farm to be able to feed more advanced materials into the houses for food. But since that costs money, it's better not to do it initially because that's eating up parts of your economy you could be using for expanding your research, because there's no reason to stay in the earlier levels of research longer than you need to just because you wanted to automate something which is at this point is very easily found just sitting around the map. Later on in the game, once you've exhausted all surface resources, you have to use farms because at that point that's your only source of wheat. But as long as there's wheat in the world, I'll just throw some workers at it and harvest. And I'm currently out of money. Placing each farm tile costs 5 gold, which normally you don't even notice the cost of that. You just throw them down because you have some amount of money saved up. I happen to be broke right now because I just did the terraforming, and right now my school is eating up my money, and my economy is not able to outpace it as easily, so it's sitting there and basically churning at low money levels right now. And so I patiently wait for money to build up so I can add farm tiles. I'll probably just leave that for a while and come back to it and add the farm tiles later. At this point, I am trying to get a larger workforce, so what I'm going to do is take my cloth production and use that to build my houses into level 3 houses, which will gain me additional workers for every house I've already built. So I'm about to get a huge boost in my workforce, which is nice. I'm robbing cloth from the cloth belt production temporarily, but once I get all my houses upgraded, I can go ahead and spin it back around and have it going both places, because I'll have the research unlocked for the grabbers, which lets me move items around more efficiently on belts, which I don't have right now. I'm doing a raised walkway to carry the items through the base, because that lets the workers still walk underneath it and still get to everywhere they need to go. You can run it along the ground. However, that starts cutting off pathing options when your workers are trying to get from point A to point B, and they would have to go the long way around, and or you could build a bridge over it, like I did with my stone, but that gets to be kind of a pain in the butt. Buildings, for the most part, you can input an item any level vertically as long as it goes into a part of the building. Maybe not the very tip-top block of the roof, but for the most part, if you run it into the side of the building anywhere, it will try to be accepted into it, which you'll just have to play with to get a feel for how high up on a building you can put it. You don't have to put any support pillars underneath it. I do it mainly because I think it looks better. Otherwise, you have stuff arbitrarily floating in midair, and it's kind of cheesy looking. So you can choose to put pillars, or you can choose to leave it just free floating and leave it like that. Once things are built and free floating, you can delete the connections to the ground and have it completely free floating, which is completely against gravity, but that's the way the game calculates how you build stuff. If you click and hold while using the camera controls to pan around, it's the very convenient way to place a long strip of belts like I just did right there. Vacuuming cloth up off the belt to put it in my base, which I'm going to use to upgrade the houses itself, because you have to have cloth in storage, either in a barn or in your base, in order to upgrade the houses. Once the houses are upgraded, the market can start selling the cloth to them, but I have to wait for the market to get to that point. And still out of money to try and set farm tiles. Of course I am. Waiting on the cloth to get over there. Yay, multitasking, doing two things at once. Always a good thing. Come on. It's a little slow right here because I'm waiting for the stuff to start doing stuff. These workers aren't needed anymore because this was to feed the raw iron ore into the school to research the forge. But since the research of the forge is already complete, I'm just ripping them out. I'm about to replace it with actually building a forge itself. The downside is that requires 200 gold, and I don't really have that right now, so I just gotta wait. Need more stone. You always need more stone. Yeah, within reason. Always put footpaths next to what you're harvesting. It lets workers move so much more efficiently. So when in doubt, put footpaths where workers are going. It just helps them out. Need logs in general for building stuff, so making a quick barn real quick to collect the overflow, because that chute is backing up, so there's extra logs which aren't being consumed, so I'm just going to dump them into the barn and be able to have them available for building when I need to, rather than having to go out and hunt down where I have some extra logs and doing things manually. Because no, I don't want a road ramp. I want an empty ramp. There we go. That's what I want. Yay! Move the ramp out one square, and what that'll let me do is put a secondary chute next to it and just branch it off into the barn without having to do extensive work as far as like making a second full set of ramps and scaffoldings going up. Okay. So they'll try to go straight initially into the lumber mill to make paper, but any overflow, once that's full, will be diverted to the barn to let me build, which is what you want. You always want to feed your production buildings first and feed your storage second, because otherwise everything will grind to a halt anytime you use anything out of storage, because it will divert all your production to try and refill the barn's 200 inventory, rather than actually doing its job and just shifting the extra stuff into inventory over time. Forges take a tiny little bit of coal and basically as much iron as you can pour into them. So you have at least 3 workers harvesting for every forge, and that'll be good enough. Once you can build up the harvester drills, that's the best way to do it, but that's a couple of research steps in that I haven't gotten to yet. That'll be next episode, probably, I'm thinking. Okay, now that I'm actually getting my forge up and working, I can well and fully get rid of the original stone system. Get out of my way. There you go, thank you. Move this house up so we can take advantage of feeding off the belt too. There we go. Oh, come on. Gotta get rid of this. This is what I meant about ripping up the footpaths because they get in the way. Upgrade. There we go. Give me some extra cloth here so I can upgrade several more houses and get them on the next level too, so I have extra workforce. I like extra workforce. 1 wheat was in the way, of course it is. Having just finished intermediate logic, that unlocks the grabber, which I just placed down. Normally, a building will only spit an output out on its green arrow, which is a single spot, but with the grabber, you can literally force a building to output anywhere, any spot next to it. You can have your output, so it really helps in your layout. And then the pushers, which are the green arrows I put down, will divert stuff off a belt into a building, which now lets that one central belt feed all of these houses with iron bars that the forge is making. So that's a good thing. This was the next step above stone, which stone only produces 2 gold per thing consumed, whereas iron bars produce 12, which is nice because it makes you a lot more money a lot faster. Having more than one forge is useful because forges aren't really all that fast in producing the iron bars. I have to be a little crafty right here to get the people where I need to be to get the stone and the coal into the back of the buildings. But it's fine. It's not that difficult. Basically, I'm going to be doing a 2-level input system where the base level is just coal on a little direct diversion chute. It's just a little 2-square wide thing that lets it go into either building. And then I'm going to use belts to shift items vertically up over that to feed into the buildings on the next level up. So I can have all of the iron going in the second level up and feed both buildings with iron as well, within the same square on the map, even though it's shifted vertically. Get the coal next to it and stop running around. There you go. If you can have your worker not actually take any steps, and he just basically picks it up and drops it immediately onto the chute, that's the highest throughput option. Because any time he takes walking around between where he picks it up and where he puts it down, that's just wasted time, so you're not moving items as fast as you could. Or you're using more workers to accomplish the same thing, which is also a bad thing. Whenever you're building directly over another thing, you have to have one empty square directly above the chute or the belt, and then the second level up has to be an arch, which is what gives you room for the items to flow underneath it, otherwise they'll jam and they won't make it. So what I did with the pusher is anytime an item gets to that point, the pusher tries to insert it into the building, and if the building can't take it, then it'll flow on past and get pushed into the second building by the nature of the belt. So if you can flow a belt directly into a building, you don't need a pusher. You only need a pusher if you're trying to flow past the building and into the building as a splitter, basically. Now, 3 workers is not enough to feed 2 forges, so I'm going to have to set up 6 workers harvesting and kind of finagle where everyone is standing to get everything everything where it needs to go onto the flow. He can't put onto the belt like that. I should have learned that from the trees earlier. Okay, fine. Shove it straight into the building. I don't care. That works. My end goal is to get 3 workers feeding each forge, because that should allow it to have its production maxed out and not be waiting on resources. So that should be good over there. Going to vacuum up some cloth so I can upgrade my houses, get a little bit more workforce going. There really needs to be some indication on what the house level is just visually. Either change the color, change the roof tile, different physical model, make it bigger, fancier, I don't know, something to indicate what level the house is without having to mouse over all of them and physically see what level it says it is. Now that I have my grabber technology, I can go ahead and spin this back around and start making cloth belts again while still pulling out cloth to feed the houses out the back of the building. Now that I have money saved up, I can sit here and put down as many farm tiles as I have room for, and I don't have to worry about the piddly little 5 gold per tile, because I have a nice little cash cow built up. Plus, I'm selling iron as fast as I can make it, so I have a really nice income right now to play with. If I was really aching for space, I could take and move the chutes up vertically off the ground and get those tiles full of farm tiles as well. But if you're not like really desperately trying to get every last percentage out of it, that's really not worth it. Upgrade some more houses. Oops, delete. Haha. Okay. Forges. Yeah, I'm gonna bump those up to 5 workers apiece to get their output as high as possible. Later on, I can build steam and magic boosters, which will give me an extra 50% each, but right now this is what I got. Good. In the last little bit here, I'm going to terraform up the ground to be able to put down the last couple of farm tiles. And that will pretty much be it for the episode. Hope you guys had fun. Next episode is probably going to be steam and machinery so I can get harvester drills. Have fun. Bye.